The room went still. A dozen executives turned their heads in perfect sync. Some blinked in shock. Others narrowed their eyes, uncertain who had dared interrupt the most influential man at the table. At the far end of the long granite conference table sat Sheikh Khalid al-Mansour. His perfectly tailored navy suit gleamed under the chandelier's glow. His words, spoken moments ago in a rare Arabic dialect unfamiliar to most Western ears, lingered like an unnoticed haze until they stung. The voice came from the sidewall, not from the translators, legal team, or the row of assistants quietly typing. It came from a woman holding a silver tray of bottled water, standing rigid, trained to blend into the background. Her name tag read Aisha. Aisha Thompson didn't waver under the startled gazes. Her hand steady, she placed the tray on a side table, straightened, and met Sheikh Khalid's eyes. Calm, focused, certain. He studied her. The quiet confidence of a man accustomed to dominating faltered briefly. "You speak Arabic?" he asked, switching to English, his tone sharp but controlled. Aisha replied in the same dialect, "And I know the difference between intent and deception." "Your Excellency," a senior partner from Stonebridge Partners gasped, leaning back, flustered. "Is she even staff?" "She's a server," someone muttered. Aisha ignored them, her eyes fixed on the sheikh. "What you said leaves room for retroactive control, not just compliance. It's not a safeguard, it's a takeover clause." The translator beside Sheikh Khalid glanced at his notes, sweating visibly. "Do you have legal training?" the sheikh asked. "I have a master's in global finance," Aisha replied, still in Arabic. "I worked 3 years for an investment board in Dubai before returning to care for my mother." The sheikh's gaze sharpened. "You interrupt me before my peers and accuse me of deceit. That's bold." Aisha's lips tightened, but she stood firm. "No disrespect, sir. Only truth. You're not part of this negotiation. You're a maid," he said coldly. "Security should remove her." Aisha felt heat rise in her neck. Across the table, someone murmured, "Let her speak. She might be right." Another voice, Thomas Reed from Stonebridge, interjected diplomatically, "Your Excellency, perhaps we clarify the clause for confidence." The sheikh didn't reply immediately. His gaze locked on Aisha. Then, with a wave, he dismissed the idea of escorting her out. "You worked in Dubai?" he asked. "Yes, at the National Wealth Fund, Risk Oversight Division." He tilted his head. "You're not just a maid." "No," Aisha said softly, "but that's what pays the bills now." He nodded once, then turned to his translator. "How long did you know she was right?" The translator froze. I thought—" "Leave," Khalid ordered. The translator scurried out, briefcase flapping. Aisha stood still, heart pounding, unsure if she'd be thanked or fired. The sheikh turned to Reed. "This meeting is done. We reconvene tomorrow noon with someone who understands the documents." Aisha quietly exited, walking down the echoing corridor to the staff elevator. She passed stunned junior analysts, avoiding her eyes. As the elevator doors closed, her shoulders sagged. She didn't know what tomorrow held, but for the first time in years, she hadn't faded into the background, and someone powerful had listened. Aisha stepped into the back hallway of the Imperial Crown Hotel, the heavy door shutting with a thud like a final verdict. She moved quickly to the service elevator. As the numbers descended, her hands trembled. She clenched them, breathing deeply. She just challenged one of the world's richest men before a room of elites. Now she stood beside a mop bucket. The elevator opened, revealing Maria, a housekeeper. Her eyes widened. "Girl, what did you do up there?" "The kitchen's buzzing." Aisha gave a tight smile. "Maybe said too much." Maria tilted her head. "Too much or just enough?" I don't know yet, Aisha said as the elevator descended. Maybe both. They rode in silence. Maria touched her arm. You did what you had to. You looked out for them, even if they didn't know it. Aisha nodded, wanting to believe it, though reality was complex. In the employee locker room, her supervisor, Mr. Carter, waited, sweating. You're on thin ice, he said without preamble. 3 calls from management already. I wasn't trying to cause trouble, Aisha said. I heard something dangerous and spoke up. You spoke out of turn, he snapped. That was a multi-billion-dollar meeting. You embarrassed them. You embarrassed this hotel. No, Aisha said calmly. I protected them from signing away their rights. He paused. A new voice cut in. She stays. They turned. Standing in the doorway was Eleanor Grant, the hotel's general manager, tall with silver-flecked hair and a commanding air. She rarely left her corner office. Now she stepped forward like a judge entering court. Miss Thompson showed more insight in 5 minutes than some lawyers do in months, Eleanor said. Carter sputtered but didn't argue. Eleanor looked at Aisha. You're off floor duties today. My office, 3 o'clock. Aisha nodded, stunned. At 2:55, Aisha stood outside Eleanor's office on the 31st floor, palms sweaty. She smoothed her uniform, noting its frayed collar. Eleanor opened the door, and Aisha stepped into a minimalist room with Hudson views and framed awards. A photo showed Eleanor with a former senator. Sit, Eleanor said. Aisha obeyed. You worked in Dubai? Yes, ma'am. My mother got sick, so I returned. After she passed, my resume gap scared employers. They saw my skin, my name. Eleanor nodded. That's the world. But today you made the right people notice. Aisha said nothing. I looked you up, Eleanor continued, tapping her keyboard. National Wealth Fund, 3 years, risk compliance for contracts over $100 million. Yes, you could have let them sign and fall. Aisha looked down. I couldn't. I knew what that clause meant. Eleanor leaned back. You want back in? The real table? Aisha blinked. I haven't touched a legal document in years. That didn't stop you from saving a deal. Eleanor handed her a thick binder. This is the draft contract. Annotated. Find the problems. You have 24 hours. Aisha clutched the binder like a lifeline. Thank you. As she left, Eleanor added, what you did took courage. That doesn't go unnoticed. In the staff lounge, Maria stared at the binder. Is that what I think it is? I'm being tested, Aisha said. No, baby, Maria smiled proudly. You're being seen. Aisha stayed up late in her 1-bedroom apartment. Tea brewing, binder spread across her kitchen table with sticky notes and highlighters. The living room light flickered. The radiator clanged. Clause by clause, she found strategic ambiguities, retroactive clauses, and ownership shifts masked as partnerships. Her back ached, eyes blurred. At midnight, she poured more tea and gazed out at the city's orange-hazed glow. The world was shifting, and maybe she was too. The next morning, Aisha stood outside Eleanor's office, sleepless but fueled by adrenaline. She placed the annotated binder on the desk. I flagged 10 sections with potential manipulation, 5 with cultural misinterpretation, and 3 with legal overreach risking international arbitration. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. You worked all night? Aisha didn't answer directly. It's cleaner now. Signing yesterday would have been a disaster. Eleanor flipped through the binder, pausing at notes citing international finance laws. You've still got it, she said, closing it gently. Aisha exhaled, hands clasped. You remind me of someone, Eleanor said. Your father, David Thompson. Aisha's heart skipped. You knew him? He drafted economic reform proposals in the 90s. Quiet, brilliant, never took credit. A lump rose in Aisha's throat. He said justice was a long road, but someone had to walk it. Eleanor smiled faintly. You inherited more than his eyes. A soft knock interrupted. An assistant peeked in. Ma'am. The sheikh's liaison requests Aisha's presence at the noon renegotiation. Aisha's eyes widened. What? Eleanor stood. Your voice carries further than you thought. At 12:01 p.m., Aisha entered the conference room, not as a server but as a consultant, wearing a gray dress and carrying a leather binder. The men who'd ignored her yesterday now watched, some skeptical, others respectful. Sheikh Khalid nodded. Miss Thompson, he said in Arabic. Your Excellency, Aisha replied. Thomas Reed, looking weary, shifted. We've reviewed the contract and need clarification. With Miss Thompson's input, we hope for mutual understanding. The negotiation began. Aisha spoke sparingly, her tone professional, pointing out friction points and offering culturally sensitive revisions. She bridged legal intent and diplomatic nuance, steadying a tense room. 2 hours in, during a break, Aisha stepped into the hallway. A voice behind her said, You don't belong here. She turned to face James Holt, a junior partner at Stonebridge, arms crossed. You don't have clearance or a seat just because you caught one phrase. Aisha stayed calm. My clearance is in the footnotes you overlooked. Before he could reply, Eleanor appeared. Mr. Holt, take staff concerns to me. He mumbled and left. Eleanor turned to Aisha. You okay? Aisha nodded. He's just scared of change. Good, Eleanor said. Because change is here, and it's looking at you. Back in the room, Sheikh Khalid listened as Aisha reworded a compliance clause using an Arabic proverb about tending foreign crops with care. You speak with understanding, he said. By the meeting's end, both sides agreed to rewrite the contract. Aisha had balanced the room. As executives left, Sheikh Khalid stayed seated. Aisha, you spoke truth to power. That's rare. She bowed her head. I couldn't stay quiet. He handed her an old coin etched with Arabic script. In our culture, we give tokens for saving negotiations, not as payment, but as memory. That night, Aisha placed the coin beside her father's photo. The lamp's light cast a long shadow. She felt seen, remembered. 2 days later, Aisha entered the legal department on the 35th floor, once passing it with a tray, now with a clearance badge. The room buzzed with analysts and assistants. Some eyes narrowed, others blinked in surprise. Eleanor stood with Richard Lang, senior legal counsel. Aisha, we're reviewing drafts for joint ventures with the sheikh's firm. Audit the equity clauses. Lang raised an eyebrow. You're not a licensed attorney. I'm a licensed analyst with expertise in global finance and risk, Aisha replied. I flag traps, not argue law. He grunted and returned to his papers. Aisha settled at a mahogany desk, recalling wiping similar ones weeks ago. Now she reviewed documents impacting millions. Friction came quickly. A junior analyst, Sarah, leaned over. How do you go from housekeeping to this? Some diversity program. Aisha kept her eyes on the page. When you spot a trap clause in Arabic, doors open. Sarah chuckled bitterly and turned away. By afternoon, Aisha flagged 3 inconsistencies. A liability shift, a control rights restructure, and an IP licensing clause implying perpetual brand surrender. She emailed her notes to Eleanor and headed to the lobby cafe. A man approached Edward Blake, Stonebridge's external counsel. Your annotations are sharp, maybe too sharp, he said, sitting uninvited. I'm doing my job, Aisha replied. You're stepping on old toes, he warned. Truth has sharp edges in this city. Aisha set her teacup down. I don't step on toes, but I won't dodge traps to save egos. He nodded and left. That evening, Eleanor called Aisha to a private meeting in the penthouse suite. Candlelight flickered, jazz played softly. Sheikh Khalid rose. Aisha, please sit. She hesitated. I didn't expect privacy. Too many ears downstairs, he said. Thank you. We finalized the contracts because of you. She inclined her head. I did what anyone with a conscience would. No, he said. Most stay silent. You challenged me publicly and were right. He handed her an envelope, a consulting contract with his firm's U.S. division, generous and flexible. I can't, Aisha began. You already have, he said. Outside under the night sky, Aisha looked at Manhattan's glowing windows. Weeks ago she cleaned them. Now she reshaped what happened inside. The battle wasn't over, but she had a seat at the table. 3 days into her consulting role at El Mansour Capital's U.S. branch, Aisha noticed subtle resistance. Files vanished. Her badge glitched. Whispers followed her. She pushed forward, meeting Layla Hassan, a risk analyst from Abu Dhabi, to review a logistics memorandum. Layla glanced up. They expected you to take the money and fade. Who's they? Aisha asked. The board, legal, half your floor? Layla said, smiling softly. Instead, you asked for source documents. They shared a look of respect. In the copy room, Aisha overheard voices. She's digging too deep. She wasn't supposed to question the Geneva transfer. Aisha froze. Geneva transfer? She hadn't seen it. At home, she searched archived files, finding a $23 million environmental reallocation, with no project details, looping through 3 countries. This was a cover. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Flag it or dig deeper. Her phone buzzed. Eleanor. Private meeting. 7 a.m. My office. Alone. Aisha barely slept. At dawn, she entered Eleanor's office. You found it, Eleanor said, coffee untouched. I haven't said anything, Aisha replied. System logs alerted me, Eleanor said. It's a disguised payment, pushed before the sheikh's U.S. visit to sweeten the deal. I needed someone they wouldn't suspect. Aisha's breath caught. You used me. I trusted you, Eleanor said. Most would let this vanish to avoid scandal. It's fraud, betrayal, to the sheikh, partners, people. What now? Aisha asked. Find the money's path. The board meets in 10 days. Prove who authorized it or we're done. That night, Aisha traced transfers through Cyprus, Singapore, Geneva, finding Edward Blake's name. She sent an encrypted photo to Eleanor. Her screen went black, system override. Footsteps echoed outside her apartment. Someone new. Aisha sat frozen, gripping her father's old flashlight for weight. A heavy knock came. Through the peephole, a man in a dark jacket stood, eyes scanning like a predator. He knocked again. She didn't answer. He left, glancing at the peephole. Aisha exhaled, hid her hard drive under a floorboard, and didn't sleep. By morning, at a cafe, she sent Eleanor an encrypted message. Breached. Suspect tail. Meet offsite. Reply. Elmhurst Library basement. Noon. Burn this number. At 11:45, Aisha entered the library. Once a childhood haven, now a battlefield's edge. Eleanor sat alone. You're not paranoid, she said. Someone tried accessing my drive at 3 a.m. Aisha said, I traced the Geneva path. Blake's the key. But someone knows. Eleanor leaned forward. We move now. You have the backup. Hidden. I'll retrieve it tonight. Good. Tomorrow I take this to the sheikh. That night, Aisha retrieved the drive. Edward Blake stood in her living room. Well done, he said smoothly. I warned you, truth cuts both ways. You're not here for talk, Aisha said. I'm offering a deal. 6 figures, new name, fresh start. She stared. So I disappear, and you keep laundering through shell firms. He shrugged. Something like that. His face hardened. Or Eleanor's buried in red tape, and you're a cautionary tale. Aisha's voice dropped. You threatened me before. Now you're just confessing. She clicked a recording device in her pocket. Blake glanced at it. That won't hold in court. It just needs to reach the sheikh, she said. He left. The next morning, Eleanor received a USB with Aisha's note. The rest is yours. The sheikh listened to Blake's recorded voice, then said, We end this. The boardroom felt icy. Aisha sat beside Eleanor. A folder of documents fanned out. Blake and Richard Lang sat across, tense. Sheikh Khalid entered, his presence heavy. Miss Thompson, your evidence was compelling, he said. Eleanor began. This is systemic betrayal. Aisha displayed a flowchart of diverted funds tied to humanitarian projects. Over $40 million vanished through shell firms, she said, presenting Elijah Cole's affidavit. A retired controller forced out for questioning transfers. Blake opened his mouth, but Eleanor silenced him. The sheikh asked, Do you deny this? Blake said, We acted in the firm's interest. By stealing humanitarian funds? A Gulf partner hissed. Lang claimed legal flexibility, but the sheikh snapped, Do not insult me. He enacted emergency oversight, suspending Blake and Lang. Their devices were confiscated. Eleanor whispered to Aisha, We did it. Aisha watched the room, knowing some threats lingered. In the sheikh's office, he poured Aisha tea. You served with integrity. Why fight so hard? I've lived where justice was ignored, she said. I won't let that stand. He offered a permanent advisory role. Aisha hesitated, then accepted. That night, on her fire escape, she held her father's compass. This victory belonged to every ignored voice, every child without clean water. The next morning, Aisha entered an unscheduled compliance meeting. Layla Hassan led, with Eleanor, Angelina Cruz, and new partners from Dubai and Houston. Layla warned, Vacuums attract opportunists. Aisha said, We can't keep systems that protected them. They drafted a new compliance framework, quarterly audits, whistleblower channels, and an ethics committee. Later, Eleanor told Aisha, You've changed this place. Decide what fire you light next. Aisha visited a Brooklyn community center, meeting Mr. Evans, a retired teacher. You remind me of your father, he said. He fought for others. Aisha smiled, seeing her legacy. A week later, at a hotel ceremony, a second plaque honored the Integrity Council's global launch with Aisha's name. She spoke, This plaque belongs to everyone who chooses truth over comfort. That night, on her rooftop, Aisha held her compass and token, knowing her journey was just beginning.